It gives me great pleasure this afternoon after our lunch to introduce a patient. She has had IC and Lyme disease, and she's going to give us a talk this afternoon. Please welcome Libby Wright. Yay!
Can y'all hear me okay? All right. Well, I'm so excited to be here today. At the risk of sounding like a little bit of a nerd, I've actually been looking forward to this day for about 10 years now. So I am really excited to be here today. A long time coming. I'd like you to take just a minute and imagine a scenario with me. You've just moved to a new job in a new town. You don't know anyone. You finished your first week of work, and you have a coworker who pops her head in the door. Now, you all are executives, and she pops her head in the door and she says, "Oh, I almost forgot to tell you. Every year we have this annual dance party at my house, and I would love it if you could come. It's tomorrow night." Well, you are thrilled because you get to meet some new people, and you dress up in a cocktail dress, you've got heels on, your husband's in a suit and tie. You show up to the door, you ring the doorbell, and your coworker answers the door. She has a big smile on her face and a cowboy hat on her head, and cowgirl boots on her feet. You look behind her, you see a fiddle band playing, and little did you know, all of your coworkers secretly love to square dance. Well, at this moment, you have two options, right? You can either back away and go, "You know what, I really wasn't prepared for this. I think I'll just go home, and maybe next year I can get some square dance lessons and join you." Or you can choose to take your hair down, kick your shoes off, smile, walk across that threshold, and dance to the music that's playing. You know, chronic conditions and other unexpected life events are a lot like this. You think you know what's going on, you think you know what to expect in life, and then something unexpected happens. And at this moment, you have to decide, are you going to choose to dance to the music that's playing, or are you going to shrink away? The great news is it's completely up to you. The main concept I'm going to share with you today is just a simple equation. It's OP equals OP, and it's an acronym. Can you all say that with me? OP equals OP. And I'll explain what that is, but before I do that, I am not a math genius, but I do know that an equation means that there needs to be equal things on each side. So we're going to talk through that just a little bit. Our first OP I want to talk with you about is overwhelming pain. I experienced that about 10 years ago. I had severe pain every day, a fever every day for almost 2 years. I had IC, but it was undiagnosed. I didn't know it at the time. I had difficulty walking across the room. I had severe neuropathy from the IC, as well as some other arthritic conditions. I had 4 small children, and we lived in rural Louisiana where my husband was an OBGYN. We'd tuck our kids in bed at night, and I'd have to go sleep on the couch because it hurt so much I couldn't lay in bed with Jamie. And I remember I'd lay there in bed and I would say, "God, you know, I really think it might be better if you just take me. This is hurting me. This is hurting my family. I'm getting sicker and sicker. We go from doctor to doctor, and I get one diagnosis and one pill after another, and I'm getting sicker. I'm not getting better." Have y'all ever had a moment like that in your life where you just wonder, would it be better if I just wasn't here anymore? Well, I was there. I felt that pain. But you know, I won't steal my husband's thunder because he's going to share with you how I was able to get well. But basically, he said, "I can't sit here and watch you just die anymore. We have to figure out what's going on." So he discovered integrative medicine. And through a lot of hard work over several years, we were able to get me mostly better. And at that moment, I said to myself, "Okay, good, let's check the box off. We've made it through a major traumatic life event. We can move on to our regularly scheduled life." But then I got to learn about the other side of the equation. 3 years ago, I got a phone call. And y'all have probably all experienced a phone call kind of like this, where you feel like the air has been sucked out of the room. My specialist called me and she said, "Libby, I need to tell you something. You have advanced stage Lyme disease. It's in your spine, in your brain. It's probably caused most of the autoimmune conditions you have going on right now. I need you to understand that you're really sick, and while your husband has done a fabulous job propping up your immune system, your body's starting to shut down. I need you to understand that a cold or the flu, something like that, could really, really make you sick. I need you to understand that you have to stop what you're doing, quit your job, and fight this right now. This could take your life if you don't take this seriously." Well, at that moment, I saw two paths open up to me. One is, oh my gosh, overwhelming pain just equals more overwhelming pain. I've already been through this. Why do I have to go through another bout of something like this? What if this overwhelming pain just equals more overwhelming pain and more overwhelming pain? But then a second option opened up in my mind. And that was, what if overwhelming pain could equal overcoming power? What if the very thing that's causing me all this pain could actually propel me into something different and something better? And I decided and promised myself at that moment that I wasn't going to let overwhelming pain just turn into more overwhelming pain. That if I had it within me at all, I was going to take that overwhelming pain and allow it to transform me into overcoming power. Now, I made this great decision with myself, and I thought, okay, I'll make myself a straight line and know exactly what I need to do. I need to go from overwhelming pain to overcoming power. Great. But the truth of the matter is, as I'm sure most of y'all know, as either practitioners or patients, it's not a one-time decision, and it's not a straight path. It's everyday little decisions, every day deciding that I'm not going to let this overwhelming pain just be more overwhelming pain. I'm going to choose to make this a power in my life. So in reality, my overcoming power looks a lot more like this. It's a lot of hard work, and it's not exactly pretty oftentimes. So I'd like to share with you today how some of the attributes I've found of taking overwhelming pain and turning it into overcoming power. I'm going to use some examples that I hope will interest you. There's 5 attributes. They all start with the letter C, so they should be easy for y'all to remember. The first one I want to talk about is courage. I have a friend, she's a new friend, her name is Jan. She has a rare condition, and it's an invisible disease. If y'all don't know what invisible disease is, basically it's just you look okay on the outside. I fight with pain and a lot of chronic conditions every single day, but most people have no idea anything's wrong. Well, Jan's in that same boat, and she went to the grocery store, and she has a handicap placard because she actually has a really rare condition where she'll get muscle spasms if she exerts herself too much. And these muscle spasms are so strong, they will actually break her bones. If this happens too close to her throat, it could actually suffocate her and she could die. So she has to use a handicap permit when she goes to the grocery store. So she does this, goes into Costco, get her groceries, and she comes out, and this is on her windshield. If you can't read it, it says, "Handicapped, you should be ashamed." Horrible, right? Yeah. So Jan in that moment had 2 options, right? She could shrink away, she could feel that shame, she could take that on for herself, or she could choose the power. She could choose to be courageous. And I'm happy to say that she chose to be courageous. She took a picture of this and actually posted this on social media. And it wasn't a rant, and it wasn't negative. It was, I wish I could have told you what was going on. Because you need to understand that just because I look okay on the outside, it doesn't mean I'm okay inside. Well, this post went viral, so much so that it ended up being on the news. She was able to educate not only her community in her social network, but also a greater community about what invisible illness is and how important it is not to judge a book by its cover. That's courage, my friends. The next person I want to talk with y'all about is someone named Francine Christophe. Has anyone heard of Francine before? She was born the year World War II broke out. She was a French little girl of Jewish descent. When the Nazis invaded France, she and her mother were forced to a concentration camp. She said they were lucky, however, because they got to each take a small bag. And in this bag, they got to put a small square of chocolate. Her mother said, "This is for when you absolutely cannot go on and you're going to collapse." Now I ask you, as a mother, watching your child in a concentration camp, starving to death, working your fingers to the bone, being persecuted by people who hate you every day, at what point do you decide your child can't go on anymore? It ends up never. There was another lady in the camp named Helene that they knew, and Helene went into labor during their internment. And her mother pulled Francine aside and she said, "Francine, giving birth here is going to be very difficult. But maybe if we give her that square of the chocolate, she and the baby might survive." Well, without hesitation, with no selfish thoughts, Francine had compassion, and she gave this chocolate square to Helene. Helene gave birth, and she and the baby both survived. Well, a few years later, well, actually just a few years ago, her daughter actually convinced her to give a lecture on how she thought people may have responded differently had some mental health professionals been able to walk these people through the trauma they had endured during their concentration camp years. Well, at the end of the speech, she had a woman walk up and she said, "I'm a psychiatrist, I'm from Marseille." And then she said, "Je suis ce bébé," and handed her the chocolate. I am that baby. The compassion that Francine exhibited all those years ago rippled into all that time. Pretty amazing, huh? Our next teacher is a lot closer to home for me. And I know I'm a mom, and I have 4 children, and so moms always like to brag on their kids, right? So I'll keep this pretty short. But our 2 youngest kids are 11 and 12. Anna's 11, Noah's 12, or I'm sorry, Noah's 10. I can't talk, I don't know how old my kids are. Anna was made to either rule a country or a company. I'm not sure which yet, but one night we were tucking the kids into bed, and Noah said, "Mom, I need you to understand something. Hillary Clinton cannot be the next president of the United States." And I thought, oh boy, where are we going with this? And he said, "Yeah, Anna and I have worked it all out. She has to be the first girl president because I have to fly her on Air Force One." See, Noah, since his earliest memories I can think of him, has always wanted to be a pilot. He has this passion and this drive and this dream. And so he decided he wanted to fly Air Force One. Well, he can't quite fly planes yet, so the closest thing he has an obsession to is kite surfing. Now, we're from Michigan originally, so if you don't know what kite surfing is, it's kind of like surfing or snowboarding, only you hook a giant kite to yourself, and that propels you through the water. It's a pretty intense sport. Well, every year in the summer, I go on a writing retreat to the beach for a couple of months, and the kids come with me. And one of our friends who lives right there is a kite surfer. Noah discovered this the first year, a couple days in, and he was completely enamored. He was hero worship with Mr. Jeff. Every time he saw that kite out, he'd run down to the beach as fast as he could. "Hey, Mr. Jeff, can I help you carry your board? Hey, Mr. Jeff, can I help you with your wetsuit? Can I help you take your kite down? Can I help you put your kite up?" Anything he could do to be close to the kite surfing. Well, he was only 7, so of course he was too little to do anything with it. But the next summer, you better believe he was out there again. Every day Mr. Jeff was out, he was out there wanting to know, "Can I help?" Well, the very last day of summer last year, Noah was able to kite surf very briefly with Mr. Jeff. And that totally hooked him at that point. And he actually, when we told him we were moving to Colorado, we just moved here after last summer, guess what his one question was? "Well, can we still go back to the beach? Because I think next year I might be able to learn to kite surf." Well, happily for Noah, we did go back to the beach just a few weeks ago. And not even an hour into being at the cottage, he said, "Mom, I can't remember where Mr. Jeff's house is. Can you please draw me a map? Because I'm worried he might not know that I'm here yet, and he might need my help. And who knows, he might even teach me to kite surf." Well, I have to say, just a couple days before I left him in good hands. And this is his trainer kite. He's starting to learn now with Mr. Jeff, his absolute hero. Noah has a can-do spirit. It doesn't matter how long the goal is. I mean, he's had this goal for a third of his life, and he's been willing to do it. Having that can-do attitude, that never wanting to give up no matter what, is so important, taking that overwhelming pain and turning it into overcoming power. You know, I think last words are pretty important. Most of you have probably heard of Moses before. He gave us the 10 Commandments, parted the Red Sea, and he rescued all of his people from slavery. Right before his people were going to enter into the promised land, he knew he wouldn't be able to be going with them. He gave a really great address. And in that address, he said, I've got some instructions for you as you're going to be walking to the promised land. You're going to be going through a valley, and there's going to be mountains on either side of this valley. On one mountain, I want you to station priests, and I want them to say, as you're walking past, shout over you, "If you love the Lord your God and you follow his commands, you're going to be blessed when you go out, you're going to be blessed when you come in, your people will be blessed, your children will be blessed, your crops will be blessed from generation to generation." But then on the other mountain that's facing it, as you're walking past, there's going to be another group of priests, and they're going to shout, if you do not love the Lord your God and don't obey his commands, you'll be cursed when you go out. You'll be cursed when you come in. Your children will be cursed. Your crops will be cursed from generation to generation. And then he said the most awesome thing. He said, "Choose life that you may live." Now, getting personal for just a minute here. My Lyme disease treatment has not been a walk in the park. When you have Lyme, not only is that trying to kill your immune system off, you also have drugs where they're trying to kill it without killing you. Then once you kill off the Lyme disease and the co-infections, they actually produce neurotoxins. So I've had a tremor all over the left side of my body. I walked with cane and crutches for several years and still have to sometimes. I've had, to crawl to the bathroom to get sick. My kids have had to carry me to bed. I mean, it's been hard. And I don't have a cure for this. The best I can do is remission ever. So this is really, really hits me close to home because choosing life means something a little bit different to people who are going through something like that. It means choosing life in that moment. It means embracing it and loving where you are and what you're doing and what's going on right now. So choose life that you might live. Our last teacher is Dr. Martin Luther King. He spoke in his final address before he was assassinated. This was actually less than 24 hours before he was assassinated, in the I've Been to the Mountaintop speech. And he said he had been praying and talking with God, and he said, God, if I could have gone back to the beginning of time and seen you create the world, if I could have gone through the Middle Ages, if I could have seen Abraham Lincoln with the Emancipation Proclamation, I would have refused all those times. I would have asked you, could you just put me in the last half of the 20th century for just a few days, and then I'd be happy. Now think about this. This is a man who's been persecuted. He's been jailed. He's been beaten. He's been threatened. His family's been threatened. And in less than 24 hours, he's going to give his life for his cause. How could he say something like that? It's because he knew he had a calling. He understood that overwhelming pain, turning to overcoming power, is also a responsibility. It can become greater than you. It can make any sacrifice you go through to get there worthwhile. So I want to ask you today, what will your equation be? Imagine we're standing on the mountaintop. Are you going to choose life that you might live? Do you know why you're here at this point in time? Do you know what to do to move yourself forward, to be able to dance to the music that's playing right now, to adjust to the circumstances you've been given in this life? I want to encourage you today. I want to encourage you to be Jan. Be courageous in the face of someone trying to shame you or a shameful situation. Be Francine and choose compassion over self-pity. Be Noah and have a can-do attitude no matter how long your goal takes. Be Dr. Martin Luther King and know that you have a calling on your life. Choose life that you might live. Well, you may be wondering, why should I do this? It sounds like overwhelming pain to overcoming power. It takes a whole lot of work. Well, there's really only one reason I can think of that you should do it. It's because there's people out there in this world waiting to hear your hope story. There's people that need you to look them in the eye and say, I know where you've been. I know what you've been through. I know how much it hurts. But you can do this. So I encourage you today to choose overwhelming pain to overcoming power and dance to the music that's playing. Thank you.